Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber. You know me as host of the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, but when I'm not interviewing world-class guitar players, I'm busy helping clients with their marketing. In fact, since March of 2000, I've helped over 300 clients in 108 different industries all over the world sell everything from $20 books to $5,000 seminar seats and everything in between. I even authored a book about my experience called How to Make Maximum Money with Minimum Customers. And now I'm giving away a free marketing strategy session to business owners who qualify. If you can answer yes to any one of these three questions, then this free marketing strategy session will seriously change your business and your cash flow. Here are the three questions. Number one, have you done okay for yourself, but realize you haven't even come close to maximizing your full potential? And is this starting to bother you more and more as time goes on? Number two, would you like to start charging a lot more for your goods and services and only have to deal with those customers or clients who are willing and excited about paying you what you're really worth? And three, have you ever thought to yourself, gosh, if I could ever figure out how to attract more qualified leads simply by differentiating myself from the competition, I'd be making a small fortune right now. If you answered yes to any one of these questions, then this free marketing strategy session is for you. And don't worry, this isn't some sort of disguised cheesy sales pitch. Look, you'll be amazed how a few simple tweaks can change your business so dramatically. And this improvement, along with the increase in net cash flow that results, is what allows you to retire comfortably, put your kids through college, and take those much-needed vacations whenever you want to get away without having to think about, can we really afford this now? So book your free marketing strategy session with me right now by going to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing. Again, to book your free marketing strategy session with me, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing right now. Thanks for listening. Now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and I have a real special guest today. We've been trying to get together for a while. We're with Rebecca Frazier. She's an awesome flat picker, very talented artist. She makes great records, great videos. She really achieved notoriety in the music world as actually the first woman to ever appear on the cover of Flatpicking Guitar Magazine, and that actually sounds ridiculous as I'm saying that it's took that long. But she's widely known for her work with award-winning Colorado-based bluegrass outfit Hit and Run. They're the only band to win all three Rocky Grass, Telluride, and the Society for the Preservation of Bluegrass Music of America Festival Band Competition. They toured and all over, and they played at festivals and venues in 41 states in Canada, and they eventually migrated to Nashville in 2007 with 2 studio albums under their belt. After experiencing a personal tragedy and a subsequent break from touring, Rebecca focused solely on her writing for 2 years, and the result is her transparent 2013 album, When We Fall, which we'll talk about today. That album has had a ton of success, reaching number 3 on the Roots Music Report National Bluegrass Chart and number 6 on the Bluegrass Today Monthly Chart, and garnering praise as Best Bluegrass Album of 2013 by Bluegrass. That's such a hard word to say. It's like Barbara Wawa. Bluegrass Situation. She's rare in the music world in that she's kind of like a triple threat. She's a really great singer, a very talented songwriter, and an amazing flat-picking acoustic guitar player. And I would encourage you all to check out her video channel. It's pretty extensive on YouTube at just youtube.com. It's either Bluegrass Guitar Mama or Rebecca Frazier. And thank you for your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So what are you working on now that you're excited about?
Ooh, I've got a lot of irons in the fire, as most musicians do, but my main focus lately has been pre-production for a brand new album. And
what can you say? Are you allowed to talk about it a little bit? Or what can you talk about?
Well, I've let's see. There's a lot to say. The songs have been kind of percolating about, let's say, 5 years. And so I have the writer's problem of too many to choose from, which is probably a good problem at this point. which is making me say to myself, I am not allowed to wait this long next time before I record again. But the song selection has been a big deal lately, and working with my producer on pre-production has been a real treat. Just getting the arrangements and the feeling down of what we're trying to accomplish.
How many songs are on the record?
Oh, we haven't decided how many we're actually going to end up with. We've narrowed it down to a good 15 now.
Wow.
So,
how come you waited such a while? Not such a while, but 4 years. I know you had a bunch of stuff in the hopper. What you just said? I'll never wait that long again. What made you wait?
Yes, I know.
What made you wait that long?
It's funny, before When We Fall, there was a good 8 years between albums, and that one was because I had 3 pregnancies back to back, and relocated to Nashville. And I know we'll probably talk a little bit more about that later in the conversation, but this time I had another life change. I toured for a good 3 seasons for When We Fall, and unfortunately during that time I split up with my husband, and so it seems like these life events kind of tend to form my album schedule more than I have control over, and life kind of takes its own path sometimes. You know?
I totally get that. Yeah, and you can't plan life. You can't plan that crap, unfortunately.
Right. Life has its plans.
For people who don't know, can you explain what flat picking is?
Sure. It's honestly, basically, it's bluegrass guitar. But it's a style of guitar that some people play, even not in a bluegrass situation. They might play a flat picking guitar contest where it's a stylistic way of playing, almost like a language, similar to how when you think of, bebop, you think of Charlie Parker style solos. That's a good analogy. It's kind of like a language of guitar playing on the dreadnought. Most people play it on a dreadnought guitar with a pretty heavy duty flat pick. Obviously, you play it with a flat pick.
Even I knew that. Hey, so how did you get into guitar in general, and then specifically into this flat picking style? What was the attraction for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I started playing guitar around age 11, and I loved it. I'd been playing piano since I was 5, and it was pretty nifty to be able to immediately apply a lot of the concepts. I remember learning Stairway to Heaven in 7th grade. I remember learning Patience. I loved Guns N' Roses. I loved Michael Jackson. I loved, the music of the day. And I also attended a girls' camp in the Blue Ridge Mountains called Camp Mount Shenandoah. And they elected me as the song leader, and it put me in a really cool position of writing songs. I was about 13 years old and teaching them to, hundreds of campers. And I would often, use my guitar as a tool for teaching and performing there. And I learned my first real traditional mountain music when I was there. My first song I learned of this genre was Banks of the Ohio. And it did speak to me, but it wasn't the only thing that spoke to me. And just like a lot of musicians, I have a lot of different interests. At some point, I think probably around my late teens, I narrowed the focus a bit. It became the larger. It became the forefront of how I spent my time. Bluegrass did. Guitar and bluegrass. Yeah. Okay. I just kind of it hit me around. I'd say 19 was when I was like, I love fiddle tunes. I love Tony Rice. I want to do this all the time, hours and hours per day. I tried to quit college. My parents said, have fun paying for yourself. So, so I actually, it was good timing because I had enough time to switch my major to music. So then I was able to put the college energy into music theory and learning jazz improvisation skills and things like that.
Wow.
Toward the college degree.
You learned jazz improvisation. And
well,
in theory.
anyone can study jazz improvisation, but whether you follow through and actually go and do it, that's another thing. You know, when bluegrass took over for me, I just kind of unfortunately like dropped a lot of focus on that other stuff.
Well, I wouldn't say unfortunately. You're pretty successful as a flat picker, so I think it worked out whatever decisions you made musically for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. And now what happens with a lot of people, especially, you know, anyone who like concentrates on one thing for a while, then you tend to chill out and things come full circle. And then those interests that you had earlier on that you maybe dropped, they do resurface. And so, you know, I was at a gig last night and pulled out one of the jazz standards that I learned in college, a Billie Holiday song. And, you know, and that's where it's really fun is when you can constantly be learning and, you know, developing other aspects of the music, you know, that you hadn't been concentrating on the past few years.
Where'd you play last night?
Oh, it's just downtown Broadway, Nash Vegas.
Very cool. Nash Vegas. That's pretty funny. That's a good name for it, actually. So basically at 19, you knew that I'm going to do this. This is my deal.
It hit at 19 because before that I'd been kind of a dilettante. I was big into oil painting. My mom was a painting professor. So I actually was thinking of majoring in fine arts and took a bunch of life drawing and, you know, early classes, you know, life drawing and painting classes at the University of Michigan Fine Arts School. And I also was studying literature. I ended up double majoring in German and English literature and music because I thought I had spent my senior year in high school in Germany. So I had become a German speaker and thought maybe I'd want to be some sort of international, I didn't know what, but I was intrigued by and loved learning languages and communicating with people and traveling. And I spent a good 2 years concentrating on literature and languages and fine arts. And then what happened was I ended up joining a band and was out gigging on weeknights, you know, the night before exams and stuff. And I fell hard. It felt like falling in love. I was like, this is what I want to do forever, all the time.
That's awesome.
Music.
And I actually think it's really cool too that you studied stuff that you were passionate about or had interest in. I think that's a real healthy thing to do. You know, instead of worrying about what am I going to do with this, you had a passion for it and everything worked out. But, you know, I think that's really cool that you did that.
Well, thanks. It's a blessing to be able to.
Yeah, I'd say so. So you're from Virginia, but you were going to school in Michigan?
Yes. My family's been in Virginia. We're old school. Like people came over 1611.
Oh, wow.
So, and yeah, they're still there. My parents are still there. And I applied to, you know, colleges all over the country. And I've always been a gut person. And my mom took me around to various colleges I'd been accepted to. And Michigan hit me in the gut. It's just like, oh, this is where I'm going. Okay. Cool.
So you went to University of Michigan?
Mm-hmm. Ann Arbor.
That's really cool. What was growing up in Virginia like? Like, what was your childhood like? You said your mom was a professor of painting, fine arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what'd your dad do?
He was an investment banker, public finance. And he was, you know, he had been in the Glee Club when he was at University of Virginia. So we used to harmonize around the house together.
Oh, that's so cool.
And that, you know, that's a fun memory to have. Because now that I'm raising children of my own, they're 6 and 9 years old now. I'm just like, what am I doing daily around the house? It's, who knows what they're going to remember of this, but it was not a musical household in the sense that my parents were playing instruments, but they loved music and were playing records all the time. A lot of the great 70s songwriters, and my dad loved The Who and Simon and Garfunkel and Paul Simon, and he had all those records.
Those are great
Carol
songwriters. You had said something, and I wanted to ask you a question about it. Brain fart. Sorry about that. Okay, so you had like a pretty good, like artsy sort of encouragement as a kid. Overall, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, my parents really value the arts, but my dad's a capitalist and very interested in financial security too.
Yeah.
He was in finance, and I have a really funny memory, age 22, after they had been very supportive of me studying art and languages and music. And, my dad, I remember he bought me a nicer guitar when I was a junior in college. And that was really sweet. And that's a nice memory. But then it was weird. It was like something clicked when I was 22, and they had a sit down with me on the patio when I came home from Ann Arbor to visit them. And I had thought, by the way, I didn't want to enter the real world after Michigan. So I applied for Berklee College of Music.
Oh my God.
To go straight there for the summer semester. And so I stopped by my parents' house to visit between Ann Arbor and Berkeley.
Right.
And my parents sat me down and they said, people who are hiring want someone fresh, someone who's 22. And, now's the time to apply for jobs. And I was like, well, I'm a musician. That's what I'm going to do. And they were like, well, we just want you to know that, it's not the type of thing that you can wait till you're 27 to show up and start applying for jobs, at corporations and banks and, things like that.
You're a has-been at 27 already. That's so funny.
Well, no, and my dad was like, as somebody who's been through all this, I'm looking for the 22-year-old.
Oh my God.
And it was like a little warning, like, okay, I get it. You're doing music, but here is the warning signal. Like,
yeah.
maybe decide right this second if you don't want to be, a successful
investment
corporate
banker.
person.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh wow, that's great. When you in your niche of bluegrass and flat picking, the fact that it took till whenever for you to get the first woman on the cover of Flatpicking Guitar Magazine, was there a lot of did you sense resistance in the bluegrass arena, or pushback that you were a woman, or did you ever feel like, okay, I'm going to have to work a little harder? And if so, what was your reaction to it at the time?
When you asked that question, it kind of reminded me of, okay, I was a French exchange student and then I was a German exchange student. When I went to France, I had studied French for 10 years and thought I was really great at it. And people were pretty critical. French people are critical of American accents. When I went to Germany, and I had only studied German for a month before I showed up, people were like, wow, a little bit of German? That's so great.
Totally different attitude.
And I don't know why that analogy that popped into my head when you just asked that question. Because I think if you can think about the flip side of the question you just asked, is if there's something that you don't see a lot, and I think there's an aspect to that. When I first started playing flat picking, there were so few women playing that it was actually like, oh wow, you can play a song flat picking, that's great. keep at it. Like, go girl. That was the mentality I encountered more than the French mentality of, oh, wow, this, you're not doing all the crazy gymnastics. You're no good.
That's
Why
great.
try? There were a lot of cheerleaders.
That's great.
Mostly guys, simply because it was all guys playing it. There's a woman named Glenda Fay who toured for years with Porter Wagner, and she put an album called Flatpicking Favorites that inspired me, simply because if you see a woman doing it, you're like, oh, what's the big deal? She's doing it. I can do it. I used to listen to that album, and it had a great, it was a lot of fiddle tunes. It wasn't original songs. And I, of course, was trying to develop my songwriting alongside the flat picking. And of course, Maybelle Carter, she developed the soloing along with playing chords a long time ago. So she's an icon in the guitar world. And I rarely encountered a snobby attitude when I was starting out. That's
great.
Which, it's funny because somehow it's assumed that would happen. It was good energy, and you sound great, stick with it.
When you said you didn't encounter it when you're starting out, did you encounter it later?
I don't think any. I don't know. Probably no more than any guy would.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Great.
Because if your energy is, if you're projecting the energy of, I have respect for this art form and I want to learn, I think that comes across whether you're a guy or a gal. And most people who play this music have that energy of wanting to share and wanting to help each other learn more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, it's like anything else. You have a good attitude, people are going to be responsive to it. If you don't, people are going to be responsive to that as well. And it sounds like your attitude was like just, you're innocent and eager to learn. And I say innocent, like you just wanted to learn like anybody else, so people were responsive to that.
Yeah, maybe that's what I was, at least. And I still have that eagerness. I don't think that goes away for anyone ever.
You know what? Whenever I see your videos or just whenever I see you in your online presence, you come across like that. So it's pretty authentic. I mean, you're like positive and just, you're interested and enthusiastic about what you're doing. So that always comes across. So yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one picking up on that.
That's so nice.
So tough question. In 2010, I mentioned earlier you had a tragedy. You lost your son. And first of all, obviously I'm so sorry that you had to experience that. And how did you even begin to process that and sort of like start the recovery or the healing? And then how did that impact your music subsequent?
Well, 2010 was a tricky year. I got pregnant with my second child, who we found out was a boy. And I had at the time, as you mentioned earlier in the conversation, quit touring. And I was playing, around the house. John, my husband, was, he plays fiddle and mandolin, and he began touring full time with an artist named John Cowan. And
John Cowan was in with Pat Flynn, wasn't he? Newgrass Revival?
Yes.
Okay.
And currently he tours with the Doobie Brothers.
Okay.
But he had he has a really successful solo career as well. And when John was asked to be a full-time member of that, outfit. It kind of coincided with the time I had my first baby, and we got pregnant pretty quickly thereafter. And I was really happy being a full-time mom. And John was gone so much that it wouldn't have made sense at the time for me to be touring and out there. And I was fine with that. I was writing a lot. But after, what happened with Charlie, we lost Charlie. And that's when I definitely felt a need to dig deeper within myself to cope with it. And songs, it was around, because it happened in late 2010 that we lost him. And early 2011 was, along with the tragic loss, somehow blossomed into a really, I guess, an introspective time that seemed to flow into a songwriting time for me. And it was songwriting that was very natural and unforced and unplanned. It was out on the stroller with my son in the park. A song would pop into my head and I'd, kind of write it as I walked along, or, I'd be nursing him, or whatever. It was just very natural. And it was around this time because, I don't know, I guess because I had so many songs that the idea of a new album came to my head. And I kind of followed up on it. And I had bumped into the producer, Brent Truitt, while I was walking my son one day. And I had met him previously at a party in East Nashville. And we discussed working together. And it seemed like the right thing to put my energy into, to try to heal and to try to divert, not to cover up or, not to put wallpaper over the emotions, because that's not necessarily a good thing, but just to kind of, put my energy towards something creative and positive. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And, I just got to tell, I didn't know about any of this until I read your bio, and, I had talked to you a few times, and I just want to say, I think you're awesome for just having to deal with all this. And every time I've spoken to you, you're always, even if I'm not looking at you, you got a smile on your face. You're always bubbly. And, I think that takes a lot. This is not like, this is a tough thing though to get through. I couldn't even pretend to. I don't think this is one of those. It's like being pregnant. You can't imagine what it's like to be pregnant unless you're pregnant. Well, you can't imagine what this is like unless you've gone through this, So I just think you're. I don't know what's going on inside, but outside you're doing great. So I have a lot of respect for you for that.
Thanks for saying that.
You're welcome.
Well, I did want to say we. One of the songs we wrote was actually for Charlie, my son. It's called "Babe in Arms," and it was a melody that came into my head, and it was a beautiful melody. And we put words to it for him, and ended up recording it on the album, and ended up singing on his memorial service. Which was on his birthday, would have been his birthday in 2011. Now that was a healing experience in and of itself. And eventually, one of my dreams is to kind of somehow let the song find a way to other women and men, other parents in a similar situation.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I've had different ideas on that, like, reaching out to different websites, or there's an organization that helped us called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep that I could reach out to. But just like a lot of artists, I have a lot of ideas and hopes and dreams about things like this. And one thing I noticed is poetry and music were almost one of the only things that helped, because talking about it to people somehow didn't help. It was such a crazy time emotionally, and it was like every possible scenario seemed to trigger emotion and
Of
sadness.
course. Yeah.
Like running into someone else holding a baby, like that could trigger me for the entire day.
Yeah.
Or I would have maybe I'd have like cramps that felt like labor pains, or something that I would associate with the pregnancy or with him, or I'd find a toy that somebody had sent that was supposed to be his, or just anything. And these poems I found, some of them were online, and songs were kind of the only way I felt connected to the creative force, or the divine force that could carry me through.
I would imagine it would probably be the rest of your life where you're going to see things and feel things that are going to, sort of trigger that. And it's just to what degree you could, manage, the emotions behind that over time. And that probably is going to ebb and flow. I mean, this isn't I don't imagine this isn't a standard thing, where, it has a cycle of, this is what typically happens, and then whatever. I mean, this is pretty big thing. So I think all that stuff you're saying is totally normal.
Right.
The album that came of that was called When We Fall. What was behind the title of that? Because it sounds pretty intense.
That was one of those songs that happened naturally. I was up, I'd been reading my son a book. There was like some creation imagery, and the song, I had woken up singing the melody. Like I had dreamed the melody, essentially. And when I woke up from the dream, I thought I had been in real life listening to a concert. And I quickly came to and was like, oh, that was a song. Maybe that was a gift. I don't know what that was, but I sang it into my iPhone. And that same day, I just walked up to this attic where I'm talking to you right now, and I just wrote the song. And those kind of songs are pretty rare for me. At least a lot of them I have to edit and craft and spend, some good time on to get them satisfactory. But this one was, it's pretty dear to me. It feels like it was kind of channeled, like somebody else wrote it. And I liked the imagery of when we fall. I think everybody has moments where they have personal failures, and they feel like they've fallen from their own grace, and they need to cope with it to move on. Like they need to cope with their self-image and perceiving themselves as a good person, and somebody who's connected to the universe in a really positive way and shining their light. And nobody wants to see themselves as a bad person, and everybody makes mistakes and stumbles and has to grapple with that and kind of reinvent themselves and find ways to reconnect.
Thank you. That was good. I'm glad you wrote that song. It sounded like it was like the perfect thing to come out of you at the perfect time for you. Hey, so and thanks for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. It was very kind of you. Okay, let's talk about gear for a little bit. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars would round out your top three?
Well, I only have a top two right now.
So is it like I'm an electric player and I don't know much about acoustic. Do acoustic guitar players tend to have a lot of guitars, or is it?
Yeah, most people do, I think. I think most people do, and I have to battle my instincts every time I go to Carter Vintage down because I want to just grab a third and fourth and fifth, but I also have like I'm worried about cluttering up. I have, because I have other instruments. I have a bass, so that when I have a bass player from out of town, they can play that. And I have a lot of instruments in this house.
Gotcha.
But I have two dreadnoughts that I play regularly. One is a 1935 Martin D18. And I found this at a festival in Galax. It belonged to a doctor who was looking to sell it, and I just lucked into getting a chance to play it on stage and finding out it really spoke to me. And I bought that in 2007, and I love it very much. I don't play it very much lately because it needs a little work. I have a high saddle. I play with high action, typical bluegrass player. I play aggressively, and the saddle is higher than the guitar probably, can stand it.
Yeah.
Because it's bellying up a little bit. So I've just been trying to take it easy on that guy and not take any chances on ruining the top.
Sure.
So my kind of daily, day in, day out guitar is a Martin Authentic. It's a D18 that's supposed to replicate 1937 guitar, and it has a very, beefy neck, and I can kind of play on it as loudly and hard as I would like to, and I go through frets really quickly. So
Really?
I just got it refretted, and this time he put EVO frets on it, which he said would last.
Who did your fret stuff?
There's a luthier in town named Hugh Hansen.
Oh, I don't know. I know Joe Glazer is this guy I know. Yeah, everybody.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I don't know if he does acoustics. I know he does everybody's electrics for the most part. But what is EVO frets?
It's a type of the frets are made of a material that won't wear down. And I feel a little bit silly right now that I don't know what EVO stands for.
Oh, don't feel silly. Believe me, not on this show. Nobody knows less than me, so don't feel silly.
I just did. I can look it up real quick.
No, it's all good. Somebody look it up and send it in. Are there any players who influence your playing that people would be surprised to hear?
Sorry, I was looking it up.
No.
Gold, copper alloy. Okay. Well, that's what it says under Luthier's Mercantile. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Are there any players that influence your playing that people would be surprised to hear?
Oh, it's influenced my playing? I don't know. I don't know if there would be. I just like most folks, I grab from so many different places, listening wise. I listen to a lot of EDM, weirdly enough.
Really?
Not a lot. I just enjoy.
That is
my daughter
surprising.
And I well, my daughter is 6, and she's a Taylor Swift fan, and we love dimming the lights and dancing around the house, and we love
EDM.
that
That
style
is so
to dance
funny.
to.
Oh my God.
But,
That's a bluegrass gossip expose column. Flatpicker touts EDM. That's so funny. That's her biggest influence.
well, it's fun having kids too, because they bring in what they like.
Yeah.
But I listen to all kinds, and then I take ideas, especially arrangement ideas. There's a lot of creative arrangement ideas in the pop world, and so I also I still tinker around on the piano, and I get together every now and then with a wonderful piano player named Joseph Wooten, and he shows me cool ideas that are applicable actually to what I do with flat picking, but he doesn't know they're applicable. It's a fun little puzzle for me, because he'll show me something cool that Bruce Hornsby does, or something really cool that he does, because he plays with Steve Miller Band, and then just being the musician that I am, I tend to put the ideas into other instruments or into the singing, or if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally
Like
makes sense.
maybe he'll show me a pentatonic exercise, right? Or he'll show me a different way of looking at the pentatonic scale. And then I'll go maybe sing that exercise, or I'll go play it on guitar. So that's fun.
That's awesome. Playing piano probably was a big help for you, like to intellectually process the theory aspect and the layout of the note, the spatial relationships between notes, I would imagine.
I think so. And I see that with my kids already. Like they've been taking piano since they were 3 and 4. And now that they're learning fiddle, it's like, oh yeah, of course there's a C sharp in the A scale,
Oh, wow.
You just kind of, you can visualize it, because if you're looking at the black keys and the white keys and you're a visual person like I am, then you just kind of, you see it. You see that B has 5 sharps,
Right.
There it is.
Music. If I asked you to pick your top 3 Desert Island discs in no particular order, and knowing that this can change tomorrow, what would be the first 3 albums that come to mind right now?
Ooh, that's tough. Bonnie Raitt's album from 1971. I love that album. So I could say that one for sure. Everything else seems to change too often.
Yeah.
A Neil Young album would probably hop on that list quickly.
He's just such an amazing artist, that guy.
Which Neil Young album would change by the day is the
Right.
problem. Because sometimes I'm in the mood for After the Gold Rush. Sometimes I want to hear Comes a Time.
Those are both such great albums.
A Tony Rice album would probably make it on that list. But again, I'm not sure which one. Those are nebulous answers.
Cool. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Although Stevie Wonder Intervisions would maybe.
That is such
right?
Stevie Wonder is a popular top 3 artist, to be honest with you.
Well, he's so connected to the force. You can feel it.
I like that. He's connected to the force. Tell me something that you have learned about yourself along this journey.
How about there's no ritual or regimen that will 100% of the time give you the connection you're longing for. Does that make sense?
Connection to
connection to the force, connection to the
muse.
The cosmic energy that provides you with that inspiration, that that feeling that we're all, there's no tried and true way to control that. Like, you are out of control. You can do your rituals, and you can create habits for yourself that are likely to bring it about. But you're out of control of whether it's going to be there or not. So, I think that's an important thing to understand.
So I guess that's why you're smart enough, like when you're in the middle of, pushing the stroller in the park or something, and something hits you, I guess you're smart enough to know, hey, I need to get this down now, because later when I'm going to need it, I may not be able to command this thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly. And it's with guitar playing, and it's with communication, because communication is a huge part of being a musician. Communicating with other people, communicating with the audience, communicating with talent buyers and, business people you're working with. There can be a flow that everything will feel effortless when you're in the flow.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, well, now I've really figured it out. And it's not something you can grab onto and ever figure out.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand. It's weird. You know what happened one time to me? This is the weirdest thing. I was in a zone. This is like, I hate to cheapen your beautiful story by bringing Las Vegas, but this is so weird. Like one time I went to Las Vegas with my wife, right? And we're not big. We play like $5 blackjack tables, right? So all of a sudden I'm winning on this blackjack, right? And I'm like, holy shit. And it was such a run that I got dealt. I know this is like cheapens your whole story. I'm so sorry. It's like so awful. I apologize. Soiling something beautiful. But I'm talking about the flow. So I was in this zone, and so I get 2 10s, and I move my hand, and the woman somehow thought I was asking for a card, but she puts down an ace. So like it was that zone. I know that's such a horrible analogy, but that's the zone. See that I don't have your zones musically, so I have to take them when and where I can get them and recognize them, and that was one of them. So should I might have to edit that out.
That's a great story.
Yeah, great.
No, that's a good story, and I'm really jealous.
Well, this was the zone. Don't worry.
Hey, I bought 3 lottery tickets last week.
And
can't get that $14 back. It was a good lesson for my son, because he believed with his whole heart that we were going to win the $100 million jackpot. Like, he was making plans for the money.
Yeah.
He told me that we were going to pay off the house first, and then we were going to buy toys.
That's considerate of him. That's pretty. So when it didn't work, what did you tell him? Was he like, he wasn't devastated?
He was crushed.
Oh,
yeah,
he was.
He was crushed.
Yeah.
He thought, I've taught him, as long as you believe in something, it'll happen. And he believed in it.
Well, hopefully he don't believe in it next weekend, and then the week after that, that'd be a problem. But this is a tough question, and if you don't want to answer it, that's good. What do you like most about yourself?
That is a tough question. I like my feeling of abundance. I like feeling like I like to learn. It's fun for me.
Well, you're obviously like intellectually very smart, just to take all those different, to master multiple languages, multiple instruments. So your brain is probably, you're probably the kind of person your brain's always engaged. What's your best childhood memory?
Oh, gosh, that's tough. That's really tough. I'm really not sure. I'd have to think about that. I mean, the first thing that popped into my head is a really fond memory of standing out in the Chesapeake Bay with my dad singing harmony together.
That sounds awesome.
But I wonder if that's because we were just talking about that. That's a special memory.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
It was almost kind of an everyday type. It wasn't like a special event, if that makes sense. We're hanging out on a sandbar. And, yeah.
That sounds really nice. That sounds like very good stuff. Tell me something. This is another tough question. All these questions are tough. Sorry. Tell me something about yourself people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Surprised to hear or might find a little odd? I don't know. Gosh. I don't know if it's that odd, but I'd probably rather prefer to go camping for a vacation than like go to a fancy resort.
No, that's not odd. That's cool.
Right. I know it's not odd, is it?
Well, I mean, if that's what you like. No, that's like saying, I'd prefer to have ribs than a filet mignon. That's which I would rather have ribs than filet mignon, actually. But no, that's what you like to do. That's really cool, actually.
Well, yeah, to some people that's insane, right? a 5-star resort where everything's handed to you sounds like the best type of vacation.
But not if that's not what you like.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really judge any stuff like that. Like, there's very few personal like, as long as it's like, you know, legal, ethical, and stuff like that. I don't really, you know, I don't think anything's odd, that kind of stuff. I mean, for the most part, you know, it's just preferences. You know, I think anybody could do whatever they want. You know, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. Since you mentioned your dad a few times, what's the most important thing he's taught you?
Well, he's honest. He has an ethical meter, a gauge that is very inspiring. And it's the type of thing where, you know, if you accidentally, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, but he's
got like a good moral compass, sort of.
Yeah, oh shoot, I wish I could think of an example to tell you right now.
Yeah, I hope that's something my daughter's saying about me one day.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because it's the type of thing where something that's so small that nobody would ever go through the effort of rectifying, he would, just to do the right thing. And I'm sorry I'm not able to come up with an example right now, but and it's also not just, you know, outwards. It's also like, hey, you know, you're responsible. Oh, here's a good one. Like, for that aspect is back when we used to have Blockbuster Video.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, I do remember.
So my brother and I would check out a movie, and you know, there'd be like a $2 fine. You know.
Yeah.
He would like email my brother and me and be like, "Hey, you guys owe me $2."
Mm-hmm.
We'd be like, "Come on, Dad." He said, "No, send me the $2. It's on my account." But it was with he expected that from others, and he also, you know, would never cheat anyone else of $2.
Yeah, yeah.
So he would go through a lot of effort to make sure, and that's kind of a silly and small example, but
no, it's
how
not.
I grew up.
It's not, because it's about, I would have done the same things I've done the same thing your dad did to my kids. They got to learn, this is your responsibility, right?
Right.
You're not going to learn it by me assuming it. So no, I think that's good. I'm the same way, to be honest with you.
Oh, actually, I recently did that with my son. He asked for 50 cents for one of those gumball machine things. Mm-hmm. And they, it ate the money, it was a video game. I was like, okay, cool. Go ask the clerk for the 50 cents back. And he was like, no, Mom, I'm too embarrassed. I'm like, oh, okay. If that was your own 50 cents, would you ask for it back? And he kind of got the point.
Good.
Like he was just going to like waste Mom's 50 cents. No big deal. But
no, that's super important, I think. No, I do. I really, and you know what, like and we did this more with our daughter, like when she was young, if she wanted another refill on her drink,
mm-hmm.
okay, we'd say, okay, ask the waiter or ask the waitress, you know, and make sure you say, you know, please, may I have, or, you know, thank you, or yes, sir, or something like, you know. But we put it on her, and now she's like super responsible. You know, she doesn't hesitate when she needs something, which, you know, like probably like your dad with you, you know, you feel more comforting knowing that your daughter is able to do all that stuff on her own without, you know, being worried about something like that, you know? So good for your dad. How about your mom? What's the most important thing she taught you?
This is really a good question. Actually, when I told you that I happily became a full-time mom, mm-hmm. and was really in the zone and enjoying that and like owning it, and, you know, going to the park every day, and, you know, snuggling with my son and nursing and taking videos of him just like burping on the floor. Mm-hmm. That was a good day for me.
I hear you.
And she was observing all of this and seeing my joy, but she did say, what are you thinking professionally for yourself? I was like, huh? No, I'm good. Like, this is making me happy, and this is working for me. She's like, no, you don't get it. Like, you're new at it, but as the years go by, you will lose yourself, never to be found. So you do need to keep up your career.
Wow.
And you need to proactively keep it up. And it's true, I was new at it. I was like, oh, because I'd just come off the road, and frankly, probably a bit burnt out from touring and the whole music business thing. So and it was almost like I didn't have enough distance from it to understand what I had built in my 20s, because I'd been touring and playing gigs that entire decade. And she said, well, here, why aren't you writing songs? Why aren't you practicing? I was like, oh, well, there's no time. I'm with the baby all the time. And she said, well, I would like to help you out. I'd like to pay for a babysitter for, 3 afternoons a week. And during that time, I don't want you to do any chores, no exercising, just music. And what a gift that was, because that's where a lot of the song kernels came from. And of course I did guitar practicing, and that a lot of that time did evolve into the album that got me back out touring and back out on the road. And, I was so lucky to hook up with Compass Records and my radio promoter, Brad Paul, and they had predicted it would be successful on Sirius satellite radio, which it was. And that all came from my mother's advice, to stay in the game. Even when you you think full-time mothering, and this is not to criticize full-time moms at all, because as I explained earlier, it was satisfying enough for me. So who's to know it wouldn't still be satisfying enough, right? So that's not, criticizing someone else who's on that path, because it is extremely satisfying. But she did also know the passion for the arts that I've had my entire life, and so she knew that if I abandoned it, then it would be a lot harder, to jump back in.
You had really good parents, I'll tell you, very much. No, I mean, that was really compassionate and like supportive of your mom. Yeah, that's a really cool thing, I think.
I thought, I'm going to have to remember to pay that forward.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, I'm sure you will. Do you have any non-musical superpowers?
Well, non-musical superpowers, I like to think of myself as a good snuggler with my kids. And I do feel like a superpower when it comes to being a mom. I'm pretty darn empathetic with their needs.
Let me tell you what, there's no tougher job.
I know, and it's definitely the most meaningful job, and it's very difficult to know that my son just turned 9, so he won't want me snuggling with him much longer, and that's kind of hard. Yeah. To think about.
Boys are a lot. He'll want you a lot longer than your daughter will. That was my experience. So? Oh yeah, girls, they're much more mature. They're like, okay, bye. It was pretty dramatic. Like my daughter, I'd never had sisters or anything, and then I had my daughter, and it was like, one day we're in bed cuddling, and the next day it's like, did you see the door was closed? Is there a reason why you didn't knock? And I'm like, and there's like no transition between that, and I'm like, holy shit, what is like, it's like they're possessed, but that's just girls. Now we're fine. She's 18 now, so it's good. But yeah, your son will probably want you a lot longer than you think.
That's good to know.
2 more questions, or 3 more questions. Any hobbies or interests outside of music?
I adore anything outdoors. Hiking, camping, running, skiing.
water skiing, sailing. My kids and I have rollerblades, so we've gotten into that recently. Just love anything outdoors. And I enjoy cooking, reading novels, and reading, interesting nonfiction about, various topics. Like I love I love visiting historical places. Like last year I went to Monticello and I went to the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's home, and then, reading about presidents and reading about great, inspiring people is inspiring. I think that I don't think I'm alone with that.
No, biographies are great.
Of course, going to concerts and going to museums and traveling. I haven't traveled internationally in a long time. I think it's probably because of the kids.
Sure.
I used to go do a lot of international travel. I didn't tell you this, but my mom became a travel agent when I was in 4th grade.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so she's been to 150 countries, and she take me along.
Wow.
She took me to Iceland and Tahiti, and a lot of her travel was geared toward universities where they would be like learning along with the travel. So you'd maybe learn photography in Iceland, or you'd learn, it was really interesting, cool travel.
Yeah.
I hooked up with a volunteer organization called Volunteers for Peace, and we worked with refugees in Bosnia back in, when war going on there.
Yeah.
There was Switzerland had some refugees there, so we'd organize like bike trips with those teenagers and take them on like a week-long bike expedition, and things like that, where your energy output, like the outflow of what you're giving, what you're is, it's not just going there to take pictures and see a place and have fun. It's it's a balanced energy cycle where you're giving something of yourself, and you're having a nice experience along with it, and seeing scenery. It's a good.
Yeah. That sounds great. That's so freaking cool. I can't thank you enough for your time. You've been real generous and real open, and I really appreciate everything that you shared with us. And I want to let people know where they could find you and learn more about you online. So first of all, Rebecca has got a really good website. It's at RebeccaFrazier.com, RebeccaFrazier. Go there, sign up to her email list. She sends you emails about where her shows are, so you can check her out when her next album's coming out. And she puts out a lot of videos, and she showcases them there first. Same thing with her YouTube channel. It's very detailed. Those are like super professional videos, like old school MTV videos. Do you do those yourself, or are they like?
No, well, I worked with a gal who graduated from Watkins, which is a film school here, and she did a great job, I think.
Yeah, really good. Every one of them, they're real good.
Thank you.
Check out her YouTube channel. You could look up either Rebecca Frazier or Bluegrass Guitar Mama. Again, subscribe to the channel. Lots of cool stuff there. Get her new album or her last album. It's on her website there. It's called When We Fall. And any final words of wisdom or anything I missed?
I just appreciate that you do this. I appreciate you connect the guitar community. I think it's so cool. I think it's cool that people listen to these. I think they're really entertaining and fun to listen to.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. You're welcome. Thank you for everything. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Check out Rebecca Frazier online. Please support her. She's doing some great stuff, and she's an amazing flat picker. And really, if you're into guitar and you're a player, you got to just spend some time with her and her music. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get notified about future episodes, get on our newsletter list, get some early product announcements, and most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. Till next time, peace and love, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.